Welcome to the Why Not podcast with me, Chrissy Hawkins. In a world where everybody asks you why, I'm here to ask why not. So sit back and relax or walk and listen and join me on this journey as we try to answer this never-ending question. What makes people say, why not? Hi guys, welcome back to Why Not. So today I have Sarah Hawkins from F.I.G Nutrition back on the podcast. It's been a while since she's done an episode, but we are going to talk all about how to survive Christmas. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Hi guys, welcome back to Why Not. Today I have a person you may have heard on the podcast before, though she hasn't been on in a while. So we are talking to nutritionist and my sister, F.I.G Nutrition, also known as Sarah Hawkins. Welcome to the podcast, Sarah.
Thank you back for having me back. It's been a while. Hello, everybody.
It's been a good while, all right. So the reason I got you on today is we want to talk a little bit about, obviously it is now December, it's Christmas season, things are going to go mad, and basically it's going to be our guide to surviving Christmas. But we want to take it at a different angle because we won't want people freaking out about everything they do or, just not enjoying the time. We want you to be able to enjoy it and actually not be bothered all the time. Isn't that right, Sarah?
Yeah, I think Christmas is a funny old time. It's busy, it's hectic, there's food everywhere. And for some people that can be a big challenge. So we'll talk you through how we can approach Christmas with maybe a more balanced approach where you can enjoy yourself without the guilt and feel good in yourself overall.
Yeah, exactly. So you obviously work with a lot of clients as a nutritionist. What are the struggles that you tend to see them come up with?
Yeah, Christmas is a funny time. So I work with a lot of people with digestive issues and disordered eating patterns. So sometimes that crosses over, sometimes they're separate. But I find for me, December is a time that for this particular population can be quite tricky. So in general, when it comes to, I suppose, the health and fitness world, you're probably familiar with this too. You kind of have three types of people. So number one, you have the individual who Christmas is just another time of year. Nothing really changes. Their routine is pretty much the same. Food doesn't really change. They probably eat a bit more on Christmas week or with their different events, but it doesn't really bother them all that much. You've got the other category who is maybe they kind of go all in. So it's almost like, okay, 1st of December is here. The fuck up button is pressed. I hope we're okay with me cursing.
Oh, yeah.
It's maybe not only in food. So you've kind of got the side of like, it's Christmas, YOLO, I'm going to eat all around me, drink all around me, party. And probably even in work situations, it's like, we'll do all that in January or, everything is put off till January. So it's almost like that all or nothing situation where the person really goes down the route of like all in and it's all in and go hard, go home. Then you've got the other individual who's maybe a little bit more controlled. They might still maintain that little bit of control with their eating, maybe a little bit of restrictive patterns. So maybe you might find Monday to Friday, they are really, really good, let's say. So really disciplined with their eating, really structured, kind of maybe eating a little bit less to make space for those events at the weekend. And then by the weekend, they kind of go all in. And maybe come Monday, they're feeling kind of crappy again. So then the restriction comes back. So a little bit of maybe control is still maintained, but when they're in the point of where the parties are there's more food, there might be a little bit less control.
Yeah, I suppose the thing Christmas is the parties aren't always at the weekend as well, isn't it?
Exactly. So you kind of, you could have, there's so many different events. You've got your parties, you've got your meeting up with school friends, college friends, old work friends, family members. Maybe there's different trips away. Literally everything and anything could happen. So even when we're saying that sort of the restrictive person might be restrictive or controlled and disciplined during the day, but then maybe come evening again, it's all in. So we might have that little sense of kind of discomfort or loss of control when it comes to that abundance of food or whatever is going on.
Yeah, and I suppose a person one, they're probably grand, but the second two people, is there kind of common issues you see them end up with, or does it kind of vary, or what's kind of themes maybe do you see with people with these kind of ways of eating?
Yeah, so I suppose per individual it's going to vary a little bit, but you kind of see the same things coming up. So, for example, say for the individuals I work with digestive issues, this can be a really tricky time when there's more food available. Maybe they're unsure which foods are causing their digestive issues, or they can't be as maybe controlled or as cautious with their eating because they're eating out or they're eating in other people's houses. So you definitely see an increase maybe in flare-ups and that. If people have irritable bowel syndrome or digestive issues, they do report more kind of flare-ups around that. There can be a little bit of, for the person who's maybe all in all the way through December, January they kind of feel a bit, there might be a little bit of guilt associated, they might be feeling heavier, they might be feeling so good physically in their body, and then the rules kind of come back, and it's strict dieting in January, which I think all of us have experienced at some point, new year, new me, and then the diet might only last so long, and then you're back to square one. For the individuals who are maybe restrictive at a certain period, and then kind of all the kind of restrict binge sort of cycle, when they come to the point of when they're faced with those more social events, they might feel like they're less controlled around their eating, maybe almost like a sense of loss of control. So they're maybe eating more than they wish they would. And again, that's maybe coming with digestive issues, guilt, and negative kind of self-talk. So a range of different things can come up for individuals.
And do you find the digestive issues are caused by the extra food, or would it be something else?
It tends to be a mix of different things. When it comes to digestive issues, we focus quite a lot on the food triggers, but there's a wide variety of things that can go on, and a lot of these things come up massively at Christmas. So number one, of course, there is the consideration of what your food triggers are. So if you're not aware of what they are, that can be quite tricky when eating out and things like that. But we also need to think about, well, how am I eating when I do eat? Am I eating very quickly? Am I eating large amounts? Am I eating on the go? Am I even chewing my food? So January and Christmas time, especially when there's more sweets around and stuff like that, your hand is going in the sweet box and you're watching movies, and before you know it, the box is gone and you're full and uncomfortable. And now that's not me saying you can't have sweets. It's just more a case of the awareness of what we're doing and how we're eating. And that can contribute, because if we're eating more quickly, we're more likely to suck in air. We're more likely to not chew our food properly. So we're swallowing air and larger particles of food, which is hard for our digestive system to manage, basically. Then obviously as well, if you've got more kind of rich food, more alcohol, these are a lot again for our system to manage. We also want to be eating regular meals. Generally, when it comes to Christmas, as I said, you see a lot of the time people are kind of avoiding meals or banking calories, or banking saving space or whatever for their meals that they're eating out. So they're eating less during the day. When we don't eat enough during the day, two things happen. Number one, you are affecting the routine and regularity of the digestive process. Our digestive system likes to know what's coming in. It likes routine when it comes to kind of volume. If we're fasting, basically then having this huge meal all of a sudden later in the evening, that's a lot for our system to manage. And of course you're going to experience digestive issues or altered bowel habits, that because it's not how we're meant to eat. And then the other side of things, when you leave that long, if you skip meals, you get hungry. So the more we skip meals, the more our hunger builds. The more our hunger builds, the more we're likely to eat more when we do get access to food, because it gets to a point where your biology takes over and forces you to eat to give it the energy that it needs to support you. So if you're skipping meals, of course, later on when you come to that meal out or whatever you're doing, you're going to go mad and eat all around you. And the combination of the volume and the pace of eating and the hunger is going to leave you feeling full and uncomfortable. Then you've also got to factor in the thought of, stress is a big factor. So stress is a massive contributing factor to digestive issues. One of probably the most common triggers I'd see. And this month of December, sometimes it starts in November even, it's hectic. Like you're doing all different things. You're making sure you're getting your shopping done. You need to get all these work projects done. You've got to run around seeing everyone, the Christmas decorations, the Christmas dinner, there's so much going on that we often don't even get a moment to breathe. So when we're in a stressed state, our digestive system is actually compromised. So the digestive process doesn't work as normal. So for some people that can look like more rapid kind of gut motility. So you might be more inclined to have looser stools. For some people, that might look like slower gut motility. So that's where you see constipation and bloating. For some people, there's a combination there. And obviously as well, if we're running around all over the place, we're probably not eating regularly either. So you're kind of adding that in too. So these are the things that I kind of tend to see with people cause the digestive issues, which as well, you know, isn't nice to feel. If you want to, you know, feel good in your dress if you're going out, or want to feel in best form when you're meeting people and not like sluggish or tired or grumpy or any of that sort of thing. So these are important things to keep in mind. Well, okay, am I eating regularly? Am I even just taking 5 minutes to stop and breathe among all of the chaos? Am I saving calories? Can I maybe make sure that I'm not doing that, so I'm supporting my digestive system? Also, there's a lot more alcohol around. You know, you mightn't be drinking much water because it's cold, so the level of dehydration from drinking more alcohol, if you're not replenishing that as well, that can contribute to poor digestion, low mood, brain fog, that sort of stuff, and hangovers. That's all.
Yeah. All you want when you've got a hangover is a big massive pizza.
Yeah, and no harm, but again, just
Yeah.
remember the volume that's going in. That can, rather than it being the gluten or the cheese, it could be how you're eating that could be contributing to that bloating or digestive discomfort.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. Like, I'm all for pizzas, by the way. That wasn't a saying you can't have it. But I suppose it's one thing I'm hearing a lot, and I don't know if you're getting this as well, is kind of the food guilt side as well. Like, people saying, oh, I was out and then I had, like, you know, this, that after, you know what I mean? And they're kind of almost beating themselves up about it. Is that something that you see a lot this time of year as well?
It's something I see every day of the week, 365 days of the year, just because of the cohort of individuals that I work with. And it's definitely something that comes up in December. However, I would find slightly less so in a sense that there's more permission to eat these foods at this time of year because it's, you know, YOLO, it's Christmas. So it definitely comes up where it's a case of, oh Jesus, I was out last night and I drank all around me and I had dessert when I didn't really need it, and all these sorts of things. Like, but maybe not so much at this one, but in the next 2-3 weeks as we get closer to Christmas and even Christmas week, it's the one time of the year where as a society we have permission to eat all around us, to eat all these Christmas dinners, to stuff our faces and drink all as much as we want. And we almost collectively enjoy that and allow ourselves to do that and allow each other to do that. So at that time of year, it's really quite interesting because you start to see, well, when we give ourselves permission to eat these foods, we do eventually be like, Jesus, I can't stomach or thought of another turkey sandwich or celebration or any of that sort of stuff. And this is a really good example of there's a concept called food habituation. So food habituation is basically a fancy term for increasing your exposure to a certain food. So for example, we are habituated to eating, say, carrots or apples or things like that. So we eat them all the time. There's no rules around them. There's no restriction around them. We can have them as and when we want. So we never ever find ourselves really craving them or going overboard on them because we have that full unconditional permission to eat that because we see it as a good food. On the other side of things, if we are thinking about things like chocolate, crisps, cake, all of the things that we kind of say are bad for us, we have a sense of I can't overeat these because it's not good for my health, it's going to cause weight gain, it's going to make me feel uncomfortable, all these sorts of things. So you have this maybe different levels of restriction around these foods depending on the individual, but that little element of restriction drives up our desire for those foods. So when we do get access to them, we tend to go overboard on them. So what happens at Christmas is these foods are available freely and in abundance. We have both collective permission and our own permission to eat these foods because YOLO, it's Christmas. So we do eat them. We might initially go overboard on them because we haven't had them for a while. We haven't had the permission to have them for a while. But at some point, as I said, we get sick of it. We get so full, we get so uncomfortable, and all we want is vegetables. And this is what happens when we do give ourselves full unconditional permission to eat these foods. Eventually, we eat them to a point where actually we no longer want them. That desire is gone, that kind of craving is gone. And then we start to crave the the kind of more nutrient dense foods, because we know they make us feel good, they energize us, they help us feel good. Whereas too much of the things that maybe feel less nutrient dense don't tend to make us feel so good. So to answer your question, yes, there is a lot of guilt. There can be a lot of food guilt around this time of year, when, depending on the individual, but generally you see that almost just disappear on Christmas week, because the collective and individual permission has been granted for Christmas.
Yeah, it's funny the way you're saying that now, because I'm thinking about it, like, at the moment they're kind of giving themselves permission at the time, and then after it's like, oh God, I did that. Now I don't know if they're just saying that to me because I'm a personal trainer and they think I'll be like, no. But I'm very much the opposite. They talked about it. I was like, feck it, you had fun, whatever, doesn't matter. I'm very much like that. But it's interesting to see how that might change now over the next 2 weeks. I'm gonna have to keep a note of that, I think.
Yeah, and a lot of that sort of guilt comes from how we physically feel. So if we've maybe in that moment given ourselves the permission to eat that food, as I said, sometimes that can come with excitement. So we eat more than maybe we anticipated or planned to. So sometimes that extra little bit maybe doesn't help us to feel physically good. And that sort of physical discomfort can then lead to that guilt of, why did I do that? I don't feel good now. I shouldn't have done that. And kind of just like beating yourself up. But we all know those feelings pass, that sort of, when you're feeling that full, it's just about allowing the digestive process to take place. Within a day or two, you do tend to feel good again. But yeah, learning to become aware of that and to detach from those thoughts and beliefs around the foods and how they attach to us and our worth can be quite tricky. But definitely around Christmas, it's a really interesting one to see. Even observing in your friend groups and with your families, sometimes you see the person who, or the people who are usually kind of, God, don't be eating that, I shouldn't be doing that. Like, sometimes it kind of isn't as bad on Christmas week now. But yeah, it's a really interesting one to observe.
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna look out for that this year, to be honest. So when people like when they kind of have these kind of thoughts and around food and all, like, have you any kind of like tips for them to help them maybe try to start to change this?
Yeah, so with sort of food guilt, it's one that needs to be explored. So first of all, we need to become aware of which foods make us feel guilty when we eat them. So a lot of the time people aren't actually aware of this. A lot of it is quite habitual. It's quite automatic. It's maybe things that we've grown up with, or stuff that we've known for a long, long time. So awareness is key first. So if the awareness isn't there, there's not a lot that you can do. But if you're in a place that you're aware of these things are having an impact on your life, first point would be becoming aware of which foods cause you to feel guilty. So when do you notice yourself having those thoughts, or saying those words that, God, I shouldn't have eaten that, or I'm so bold, or I'm just feeling bad after eating something. Make a little list of those foods. So this could be 3 things, it could be 100. And it's really interesting to see between individuals which foods come up. So first will be becoming aware, making your list. And the thing you'd want to be doing is looking at where those rules come from. So taking it one by one. Well, where has this thought and belief come from? Is it mine? Is it somebody else's? Is it society's? And how do I feel about that? And then it's looking at the evidence. So you might have, particularly for people with digestive issues, it's slightly different, because they might have flare-ups and stuff. And they might feel like they've got evidence that, yes, this is a bad food because when I eat it, I have a flare-up. So it's about exploring, well, is that a true trigger, or is it a belief again that you have that could be causing your trigger? And that's a whole other conversation for a different day. So to that. But exploring the triggers, where they've come from. Is it your belief or somebody else's? And what would be the next step after that will be kind of challenging those beliefs. It can be a bit tricky to do yourself, but it is a good starting point to just become aware of your foods. Because the next thing would then be looking at reintroducing, and again, working on that food habituation piece. And that can take a little bit of time and support. But I would say becoming aware is the first point. And that would tend to be later down the line as well. At first, we want to ensure that the person is eating enough for their needs. So making sure that there is no restriction going on, because if we're restricting, we're not actually feeding ourselves enough energy. And if we're not feeding ourselves enough energy, we probably don't have the headspace to really focus on the more in-depth side of things. So that would be a good point as well to point out that make sure you're eating enough before you start going into these things. But yeah, awareness, I think, would be the first step to that.
You find undereating is a big thing that clients that come to you do, or?
Yeah, and the particular group of individuals that I work with, it's probably the most common thing I see. If I taking the digestive issues, maybe cohort, it's a big one because there can be a lot of food fear. So when we're struggling with chronic digestive issues, every food is an enemy. So it can be very easy to kind of find yourself eating a very short list of safe foods and being hyper vigilant around what foods could be a trigger and what sort of things are causing your digestive issues, which actually can also contribute to the issue. So that can be a really big one for people with digestive issues. And then people without digestive issues, it's also very common. You have really busy individuals, they might have kids, they might have high-powered jobs, they might just have a poor relationship with food and see certain foods as bad and to be avoided. So yeah, there can be a lot of restriction in the people that I work with.
Yeah, it's something I notice as well. It's almost, if you're kind of doing up maybe calories or whatever for people to do, like it's getting them to eat more is the issue more than getting them to eat less.
For a lot of people, yeah, but it makes sense because our even the general eating kind of guidelines, there's so much focus on what to cut out, whereas we should need to be looking at what people need to bring in, because when we focus too much on cutting things out for health, that's where people focus too much on eating as little as possible, essentially. And that's where you see nutritional deficiencies coming outside of the foods, like, your sweets or your crisps. Like there are other foods that get cut out with that. Like if people are avoiding carbohydrates, you're missing out on your fiber, your B vitamins. If people are cutting out fats, you're missing out on fat soluble vitamins. All these sorts of things that need to be really are important for health. They're very basic kind of nutrients that need to be included in the diet, but based on various diet plans, trends, social media gurus who have thousands of followers and know nothing really. It's very confusing for people. So with all the different things they've tried over the years as well, each of these different diet plans almost kind of accumulate into one, and all of a sudden they've cut out loads of different foods. So yeah, for most individuals, it's a case of you're an adult, eat like one. Like you need to eat more to support your needs. If you wouldn't feed that to your child, you'd expect them to eat more. For the people who have children, I know a lot of people don't, but if you were to think, okay, what I'm eating now, would I feed that to my child, my little sister, my cousin, my nephew? And if you feed them more, sure, why aren't you feeding yourself more?
That's a really good point, actually. I like that. Is there any, I suppose I know you said a lot of them amalgamate into one, but is there any ones that you still see coming up? Like for me, I still find people seem to be quite wary of carbs. And, they'll mention that, like, pasta or whatever as like a bad food. And I'm like, but how are you going to have energy? I love carbs. But
Yeah.
do you see that one still as a common one? Or is there, I don't know if they're changing trends, because I don't know, I have kind of, I suppose, curated my feed to make sure it's only people in the fitness and health industry that are balanced. But I know how to do that, and a lot of people don't.
Yeah, it really depends on the person and what they're being exposed to online, what they've experienced. One that's coming up a lot is sugar and intermittent fasting. So I suppose sugar is another package of cutting carbs, I suppose. But it frustrates me a lot that you get these people, and I see it a lot actually in the kind of holistic space. You get where health space, even recently a family member of mine actually went to a podiatrist, and the podiatrist said she needed to cut out sugar to help with a fungal infection that she had on her toe. And it was like, why is a podiatrist giving out nutrition advice? When you don't know the person in front of you, you've no idea about their relationship with food, you don't know about their background, you don't know if they've had any eating disorders, which is huge. You can't screen for that as a podiatrist, so you should not be recommending these things. And it's not only this one individual. I've had loads of other, I've had chiropractors, I've had Reiki practitioners. I think I've had, this is all that's come up in the past year, where people yoga teachers, and I'm a yoga teacher myself as well, and I mean, we're not trained in nutrition as a yoga teacher, like so it's and the sugar one seems to be a really big one. It comes up in different ways. You'll see that online as well, different people saying, oh, don't be eating sugar, and an element of it comes from, yes, we could overdo it on sugar, and there's plenty of issues with overdoing any food. However, at the end of it, if we think about sugar, if we break it down into its molecular makeup, it's actually our body's preferred energy source, glucose. So if you're to cut out sugar, you're cutting out your body's preferred energy source. You're going to be very, very tired and very, very hungry, and you're going to end up gorging on that food at some point. So this kind of willy-nilly saying of just cut out sugar and all your life's woes will be gone is just so reductionist. They don't, there's not, I don't know. It's just really noisy, because you're not taking any form of science into that. You're just saying cut out sugar and your life will be fine. And when you think about what sugar is in lots of different things, of course it is, and we should be mindful of our intake of it. However, cutting it out is just it's not really feasible, and can cause a lot of harm. It can really cause a lot of harm to individuals, and I've seen it, and this is why I feel so passionate about it, and I'm getting so riled up about it.
Oh, fair.
It's me who picks up the pieces of the people who've been damaged by this advice from the wrong people. And then you've got intermittent fasting is probably the other one that seems to be quite big at the moment. From a range of different things, again, seems to cure everything. Like whatever you're struggling with, it'll cure
Seen
it.
that, yeah, it's magic.
And if we think about intermittent fasting, I get asked about this a lot, but the key with this form of eating, it's all about, well, what is your goal? What are you aiming to achieve from intermittent fasting? Is it fat loss? Is it energy? Is it digestive relief? Is it like, what do you want to get from it? Because it's very particular in who it's going to suit. Intermittent fasting is just another way of creating a calorie deficit. So if you're looking for fat loss and you find that sticking to numbers or whatever doesn't suit you, it could work. If you find that eating it within a certain window works for you, I'm not going to say it doesn't work for anybody. However, if you're somebody who works nights, it's probably not going to work very well for you, because you're going to have to eat during the night to keep your energy and your focus. If you're somebody who works 9 to 5 even as well, if you're waiting to eat your first thing at midday, you're probably going to be really tired, really grumpy, lacking focus until midday. In general, there are a few cohorts who it doesn't suit, like anybody with background of an eating disorder, it's not suitable for. If you're pregnant, not suitable. If you are an athlete as well, it's probably, depending on the individual, unless you're eating enough calories within that window, it's probably not going to be suitable, depending on your training times. There's a lot of just, this worked for me and cured this issue for me, so therefore everybody should do it, rather than people talking about the science. So we need to keep that in mind, that there's no one size fits all for everybody. And while I'm not saying that intermittent fasting doesn't work for everybody, you have to come back to what is the goal, and what does my life look like? Is that going to work for my life? Because if I'm very, very busy, it might not. It might lead to increased hunger, lower energy levels, overeating because you're starving, different things like that. So yeah, those are the two big ones that are coming up at the moment, and you can probably sense the frustration in my voice, just because people are coming with such misinformation, and you sound like the bad guy when you say, like, well, actually there's no science to back that up and that sort of thing. But yeah, I'd say that's the most common one for me at the moment.
Yeah, I get that. And the thing as well, I think if you're going to go down this route, one of the things really important is thinking, can you do it forever? Like, if this is the way you're going to go, like, this is going to be your life, basically. Are you okay with that?
I think that's a really good point. Any way of eating that you start, you need to think, can I maintain this long term? Because ultimately, if you can't, it's not sustainable, and it's just another fad. And if you willingly and decide to jump on a fad. That's fine. But once it comes to a point where you can't maintain it anymore, who's going to suffer? It's you, because you're going to beat yourself up. You're going to be hating on yourself for not being able to maintain something that isn't sustainable. And the person who's come up with this or, profited off this, they're laughing because you're probably just going to come back to it in a few months to try it again. And that repeated failure, it only hits us and our self-esteem and only makes us feel worse. And then we're more likely to continue looking for that one answer. And just from my point of view, it's, look after yourself and think, if this isn't sustainable, is it worth the effort, the hard work, and the disappointment when it doesn't work out for me?
I think it's really important as well to say that doesn't just come to food, like it comes to exercise, because I would see a lot of people who go, like, they try to do 5 class a week, whatever, and they're killing themselves, like, and then suddenly whatever they were training for is over, and then they're like, oh, knackered, or even like before it even comes, they're knackered, and like they're almost giving up before they have a chance because they are just running themselves into the ground. And when it comes to exercise and training, it also has to fit your lifestyle full time. Can you do 2 or 3 classes? Great. Can you go for a walk? Anything like that you can fit into your life all the time and not get yourself down is really, really important.
Yeah, it's very easy to fall into the all or nothing approach when it comes to anything in health or fitness. And I would say 99% of the people I work with anyway are in that kind of cohort of individuals who have that sort of approach to life, really. So it's working on trying to find that middle ground and showing that middle ground is actually enough, and also probably a lot more you're going to actually get the outcome you're aiming for if you can go for that middle ground and just allow yourself that bit of extra time. So if anybody's listening and they feel like they're that type of personality, you just remember that, like, I'd say everyone in your gym class probably is too to some point. But yeah, do look for that middle ground, because it's the success is in the middle ground, really.
Yeah, and that's kind of boring, isn't it?
100%. All this, all the sustainable things and things that will give you what you want are boring. It's the repeated boring actions that give you that result.
Absolutely. Have you any advice for anyone right now who is kind of feeling the pressure of upcoming Christmas and all the different things to do?
Yeah, I'd say first of all, probably just take a breath, take a step back and say, right, there's a lot to do, but like every year it always gets done. So take the pressure off yourself, because everybody's kind of in the same boat. You're not going to let anybody down if you decide that one of the parties you're invited to you don't really want to go to, or you can't stay for the full thing. Or if you say, actually, I don't want to drink for this, I want to drive, like, no one's going to bat an eyelid. Once, if you're there kind of. In terms of nutrition and food, to kind of help feel more balanced, maintain your energy, to help with the stress, I think there's kind of 5 key things that I would say at all times of year, but this time of year is of particular importance. Number 1, stop banking calories for your meal out. You're setting yourself up for going overboard, feeling like shit, basically. So get those regular meals in. Not only will those regular meals energize you and help you with that tiredness and the stress you might be feeling, but it's also going to help you to go into that meal feeling like you're not absolutely starving. You're not going to eat all around you. You'll be more present. You'll be able to enjoy that meal more, and you're going to walk out not feeling absolutely stuffed to the brim and really, 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 really full.
And they're less likely also to make a tit of yourself by drinking too much.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, because it'll hit you a bit harder if you're hungry.
Exactly. So keep those regular meals in there. 3 main meals, 2 to 3 snacks, depending on your needs. Just do it. Number 2, I would say, is water. Just really try with the hydration. I know it's hard. I know you're busy, but staying hydrated is going to support your digestion. It's going to, again, support the focus, support your brain power. It's going to help with, kind of not absolutely draining every bit of water out of you. So you're like a I don't know, a dry sponge when you're hungover. Get that water into you. It's one of the most effective tools, particularly for digestion, and the one that really gets missed at this time of year. So I'd really focus on that, at least 1.5 liters if you can.
Just on the water thing, does it have to be just plain water? What about people who don't like water, that kind of thing?
Yeah, go for herbal tea, throw a bit of juice into it, have hot drinks, whatever it is, just try and get something into you. I know it's hard this time of year as well when it's colder, but it just makes such a difference. Number three would probably to move your body. Just keep moving. If it's there's a lot of extra eating, there's a lot of events, you might be tired. Getting out for a little walk in fresh air, just a walk around the block can do you the world of good, helps with your focus. Again, gives you that moment to breathe if you're mad busy. Supports the digestive process. All these sorts of things can support the mood and that. So moving, as simple as just a walk, can make such a difference. Take your breaks. I know it's hard at this time of year when there's so much to get done, but mindfulness is a great tool, a little yoga class or even like a 5-minute meditation, or again your walk outside. But it just helps you to show up as your best self and helps you to feel good when you're with people. Gives you that clarity when you feel like there's 100 different things to do. It just gives you that moment to just pause and structure what needs to be done and prioritizing that. And then I'd say the final one would be just slow down, chew your food. When you're having your sweets, take your time with it, enjoy them. We can eat very fast during Christmas. There's a lot going on, and it just supports the digestive process again, helps you feel like you can actually enjoy the food, and you're less likely to feel kind of bloated and uncomfortable come 1st of January.
Even as well, if you're like slowing down even with sweets, like and just tasting them, you'll probably eat less because you've actually like tasted it, you know what I mean, and enjoyed it, as opposed to just shoveling them all in to get as many in as possible mindlessly. Like,
yeah, and remember as well, like it's Christmas, but you can have these things in January. You don't have to jump on the January bandwagon. So if we keep that in mind, it gets rid of that sort of last supper sort of mentality, which causes us to eat more and causes us to eat excess. So if you think I'm not gonna subscribe to that January New Year, New Me vibe this year, well, you can, just in a different form. Stop limiting yourself, because ultimately you're just setting yourself up for overeating and feeling crap. Whereas if you just say, I can have these in January if I want, if there's some less left over, you're less likely to go overboard.
what about the people who are like, I just can't have it in the house, so they have to eat it all before January?
I would explore that. Why can't you have it in the house? Sit with that, get a notebook out and explore that.
Yeah, no, it's a good way to say that, because I hear that a lot from people. It's like, no, I can't have it there, or I'll just eat the whole thing in one go. Mm-hmm. So it's good to kind of remind people that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So I think that is pretty much everything I have. Is there anything else that you want people to know coming into Christmas or beyond, or even January, like something that maybe you thought of that you think they should know?
I think you should enjoy the Christmas. It comes around once a year. It's a great time for family, for connection, for fun. Enjoy it. Stop beating yourself up for enjoying your life. It's part of a human experience. We are allowed to enjoy ourselves and enjoy our food. And just everything that I said about the food, give yourself permission this month and all of the year. If you give yourself permission to eat those foods, you'll stop losing control around them.
Yeah, no, I love that. One other thing, and because I don't remember if I've asked you this before, but I generally ask this to everybody who comes on the podcast, okay? And because it's been so long, I can't remember if I asked you before. But what is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Oh.
Yeah. I normally get an answer like that. You can pick more than one, and it doesn't have to be food related, obviously.
Oh, actually, I'm blank on that. If you don't ask, you don't get. Simple. Works in every situation. If you want something, ask for it. The worst that can happen is they say no.
Yeah, and you know what? I can attest that Sarah lives by this.
Yes.
And she gets a lot because of it.
Yeah, everybody in my life has experienced that. I think God help them.
Sure, look, as you said, if you don't ask, you don't get.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I want to thank you for joining us today, Sarah. And before you go, can you let everybody know where they can find you?
Yes, of course I can. So you can find me on Instagram. That's my most active place on the internet at f.i.g_nutrition_. So it's Fig Nutrition. FIG stands for food is good. I'm not obsessed with figs. My website is www.fignutrition.ie and my email is sarah@fignutrition.ie. So if you want to contact me, you can get me on any of those channels. And lots of helpful tools and tips coming over the next few kind of weeks for Christmas on the Instagram too. So that might be helpful for you.
Yeah, I do recommend you follow her Instagram because it is very good. There's really good information there. And I'm not just saying that just because I'm your sister. But but as ever, guys, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok. So you'll normally find me now more actively on @strongthesaddle_ on Instagram and then @strongthesaddle on TikTok. And then my website is www.chrissyhawkins.com. So yeah, just want to say thanks again for joining us, Sarah.
Thank you for having me. Happy Christmas, everyone.
I really do appreciate everybody who listens to this podcast. So if you please could help me with the algorithm and leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And even, if you want to reach out and suggest topics for me, I'd be delighted to hear from you. Drop me a DM on Instagram or TikTok. And thanks again for listening.